Kaveri's research interests include the political economic of poverty, environment and development, welfare programs, and service delivery in various social sectors space. The concept of inclusiveness, the state development policy, and the status of Adivasis in mainland India. The political economic of public health policy and practice. Kaveri is deeply interested in Narendra Buddhist philosophy and she enrolled in Tibet House Master Program. Now, with this, may I request Dr. Kaveri to continue the student panel discussion.
I have 1 minute, so I'm going to very quickly talk about the teachers, students, and this interdependent blessed relationship. So the first, for those of you who don't know, His Holiness's biography of his teacher, Kyabje Ling Rinpoche, has just been translated into English, and I understand from Venerable Geshe-la that the Tibetan version was out. It is something to read and treasure and reread and just keep on your bedside. It is amazing. Second, many of us here are Venerable Geshe-la students, either in the masters or indeed everybody who is on this panel and is studying in Delhi University, JNU, and many others. They have also benefited greatly from Venerable Geshe-la's kindness. I think I speak on all our behalfs when I say that it is the kindness of His Holiness that He has sent him to us, and especially those of us who have the karma to be English speaking and be dependent on English for our dharma connection. Venerable Kansur spoke about that and the pitfalls, and Puja La and Tejal La and others are learning Tibetan, but some of us are too old, and so this is our link. And I want to say that it is our karmic good fortune, and when I think of Geshe-la, I think of verse 7 from J. Rinpoche's prayer of the virtuous beginning, middle and end. May I continually be cared for by a spiritual master whose mind stream abounds with good qualities of scriptural knowledge and insight, whose senses are calmed, who has self-control, a heart of loving compassion, and the courage of mind to accomplish undauntedly the purpose of others. So on behalf of all of us who are his students, I want to thank Genla for his king-like bodhicitta and his infinite wisdom. And lastly, His Holiness, we know about his 3 core commitments, but as the years go on, he venerates the Nalanda scholars. I think his composition to the 17 Nalanda masters shows that. And one of his commitments is to seeing the ancient Indian traditions revive and take birth once again in the Arya Bhumi of India, from whence went the profound knowledge to the land of the snows of the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. And he would feel so happy today to see the panelists who are all of a different generation, and to see them taking forwards his vision, the ultimate offering to the Guru. With these words, I won't take more time, so I will sorry. So I'll introduce all the speakers. So we will first have Mr. Pranshu Samdarshi. Pranshu has been studying Buddhism for over a decade. His research concerns the history and literature of Buddhism in South Asia and Tibet. His PhD research from the Department of History, University of Delhi, explores the dynamic relationship between sacred feminine imagery and Buddhist Tantra practice. And in fact, he has a book out recently which is called Female Buddhas, Sacred Feminine Imagery in Tantric Buddhism, and it's available for anybody to buy on Amazon. He has been awarded a junior and senior research fellowships of UGC, and he will be speaking about the misinterpretations of Buddhist scholasticism in colonial India. We will then have Ms. Jigme Spalding, who is currently pursuing a PhD in JNU, and she works on comparisons of Buddhism in Buryatia and Ladakh. So Buryatia is in Russia and Ladakh, of course, and so her comparisons are with respect to different sects of Buddhism, the role of the state, and how Buddhism is dealing with modernization. And she is going to speak about Arhats of Theravada and Bodhisattvas of Mahayana Buddhism, contrasts and similarities. We then have Mr. Stanzin Jordan. Stanzin is from Leh Ladakh, and from his childhood days has had an affinity towards dharma. He did his schooling from Leh and later moved to Delhi for further studies. He has a bachelor in computer science and is currently pursuing his master's in Buddhist studies, also from the University of Delhi. And he's going to speak about the philosophy of ultimate reality and its practice. And finally, we have Miss Chitra Rajora, who's also currently pursuing a PhD from JNU, and her work is on the political legitimacy and democratization in Kazakhstan. And today she will speak about the difference between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism. And now I'll have to do the job that I hate, which is keep time, like Geshe-la did. So they each have 10 minutes, and 1 minute before I'll give them a warning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavirila. So, I thought that rather than presenting something or reading something, I'll share my experience. Okay, thank you. So, what I've gone through during my PhD studies, I took around 5 years to do that. Prior to that, I did my diploma in Pali, Masters and MPhil in Buddhist studies, then I'm into history department. So this was 10 years, almost 10 years back. I was in graduate study, final year of graduate study, and I contacted my uncle, who happened to be a great Sanskrit scholar. He's in his late 80s, and he has published many of the Buddhist, Sanskrit Buddhist. He's one of the living authority on Buddhist Sanskrit literature, Professor Karunesh Shukla. And I asked him, can you suggest me something which I could read? At that time, I had developed some interest in this tantric goddesses, Buddhist tantric goddesses. And he said, I asked him, can you suggest to go for this reading tantra? And what he said was very important, and I feel that will help many of young students, those who are pursuing. He said that don't go directly for the tantra. First, you should go through the Pali, Theravada literature. And I had some background in Sanskrit and Hindi, so he said go through Pali. Then you should go through the whole Mahayana sutras. Then go for the 4 schools, Vyabhasik, Sautantrik, Chittamatrita and Madhyamik. And then if you retain your interest, then only go for Tantra. So that is why it took over a decade. So I think Naresh ji is sitting here. Once Naresh ji told me, very interesting, senior people, interaction with such people helped a lot while my studies. He said that once he learned from some of the Tibetan masters, and later I found it in Lankavatara Sutra, where Buddha says that for the commoners I speak in parables, for the Pandits I speak tenets, and for the yogis I speak Tantra. So these are 3 levels through which one need to go. And before just jumping on directly, it might be not a good advice. So what happens when it comes to this whole Mahayana system is divided into 2. It's a Sutrayana and Tantrayana. So both the Mahayana and Sutrayana and Tantrayana both have gone, especially during this colonial period, it has gone through so tremendous misinterpretation has been done. And those who are into Buddhist studies, they are much aware what they are studying. I was just reading one of our friend Chitra Rajora, and she writes, the group who retained the original teachings are called Theravadians, Sthavirvadians, and the group who reconstructed Buddhism got known as Mahasanghika or later Mahayana. This is absolutely wrong. And it's not her fault. This is what is taught in our universities. This is not, I've gone through so much sort of pain that lots of misinterpretation, and that is what is taught in our university. Some of professors are here and they must be listening, and they should take this note that they should revise the whole. So this colonial legacy, what happened that when Buddhism came to India, it was reconstruction of Buddhism, because it was vanished from this mainland, and I should keep the time, okay, I still have 6 minutes. So it got vanished from the mainland, and it was surviving in the Himalayan regions, and of course the great, this legacy was inherited. Fortunately, it was there in Tibet, and from where we could get something. But it didn't happen in colonial India. In colonial India, Britishers, they tried to reconstruct, because they had their own agenda to rule and to justify their ruling. So what they did, they propagated this theory of original Buddhism. And because China and Tibet was not their colony, and Sri Lanka was their colony, so they imported this Theravada Buddhism, and which was in a form of Protestant, because British is Protestant country, and this Britishers are Protestant Christian, and Italian and French, they are Catholic. So this orientation of Protestant Christianity, that was very much similar to this Theravada tradition. That is how they tried to project it. It's not true actually, but they tried to propagate that we are reforming, you all are doomed, Indians are doomed, they are towards TCS, and so they propagated this theory that this Pali Buddhism is original Buddhism, and Sanskrit Buddhism is all fake. It is not true. It was later on constructed by Brahmins, and it's not original thing. And what this is, and unfortunately our professors later on in free India, after we got independence, these things were not revised in our universities, and at present none of university teaches this Mahayana Buddhism. Recently one of my friend got appointed as assistant professor in one of the universities, and he asked me, he talked to vice chancellor, and they were trying to introduce a course in Mahayana Buddhism, Sanskrit Buddhism. And he asked me, Pranshu, we both are very good friends, and he asked me, can you suggest any professor or scholar in Sanskrit who is expert of Sanskrit? I said, yes, we have Professor Ramshankar Tripathi, Professor Karunesh Shukla. He said, no, he should be active, and he should give some time to, he should not, in his 80s or 90s, he could, university, and we could not find a single name. So this is our India. We have we all claim great Nalanda tradition, and blah blah blah, and the truth is this. So there's another, for my field trip I visited Spiti. I've stayed in Ladakh and Spiti for months, and my host was one of the government officials, and I was discussing about their own culture and their what festival they celebrate, and so I was asking about him that Chham dance, and he said, oh, devil dance. I was shocked. I requested him, sir, please never use this term again. This is not devil dance, this is divine dance, and it's great ritual, and so the native of Spiti, and they are educated that it's devil dance. It's their tradition, their heritage. It's very pathetic, unfortunate, and very sad. I always encourage my Ladakhi and Tibetan friends that the great legacy in mainland of India, we have lost it, but you have inherited it, and you are fortunate one in that sense, and you should continue this whole tradition with the whole scholastic tradition. So I think I still have 2 minutes. So I'll conclude with another anecdote. Earlier we had a very good vice chancellor. We still have good vice chancellor, but earlier was better in Delhi University. Professor Deepak Pintal. He used to invite every year. He used to invite His Holiness Dalai Lama. And in one of His Holiness Dalai Lama's talk, one of the physics professor, Professor Firoz Ahmad, he gave the introductory speech, and he said a very beautiful quote, and quote is from this Heisenberg, this great physicist who got Nobel Prize for his wave particle duality principle. And Heisenberg says, in the East, he says, in the West, we have built a large and beautiful, a big ship, and it has got all the comforts in it. But one thing is missing. It has no compass, and it does not know where to go. And in the East, the great masters, they have discovered this compass. So why not this compass is put into the ship so that both can realize their purpose? So this is, I mean, one would say that why, what is need of all these studying this philosophy or Buddhism, and these are not contributing to development of country or blah blah blah. But these intangible heritage, what has been pointed out by this great physicist, is very very important, and that is now somewhat missing. Even in India also, I feel. He said this a century back, and the kind of matters, everything, this mic in which I'm speaking, the mobile phone we use, this laptop, everything is coming from the West. This great Anand Kumara Swami, great art historian. Yes, I'm concluding. This is last quote. So this great art historian, he was a scientist. This was in 19th century, and early 20th century. So he was a great scientist, and he attended one of the art historian's talk, and in which so much misinterpretation was done about the Buddha image, and he gave up his whole career of scientist and devoted his whole life for especially the art and Buddhist art of India. So he says, this is my last quote, he says that this word, he's saying this is in the 19th century, he says that the world has become a global village, and there is cauldron. Every civilization is contributing to it. But we Indians are coming empty-handed. Not because we don't have anything to offer, but we don't know what we can offer. So I think the great legacy of Nalanda and this great Tibetan masters, this is one of the contribution which we could make to the world. Thank you.
Next, I invite Ms. Palin.
Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to wholeheartedly thank Geshe Dorje Damdullah for his teachings and guidance for so many years, because of whom I came to know about the real teachings of Buddhism. The topic of my presentation is Arhats in Theravada and Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism, their similarities and contrasts. So I'll be thoroughly reading my paper, so please bear with me. During the life of Buddha, many of his disciples became Arhat, who were freed from the three poison of desire, hatred, and ignorance, and completely free from the cycle of birth and death. The Arhatship can possibly be achieved in a single lifetime, where Buddhahood can be attained after acquisition of tremendous stock of merit and carried out the practice of Bodhisattva in an uncountable number of lives. Bodhisattvas are not created in the Mahayana Buddhism. In fact, Bodhisattvas is already mentioned in the Pali canon of early Buddhism, which is used to designate Buddhas former to his enlightenment in his several previous lifetimes. Buddha in a Samyutta Nikaya, or the Kindred Saying text, states that there is no distinction between himself and Arhat. Both are identical in terms of spiritual attainment. Buddha also states that those who wanted to escape from rebirth, then Arhatship will save you, and you can be saved yourself by Arhatship. Again, from Samyutta Nikaya, Buddha declared that his disciple Arhat Shariputra had profoundly realized and understood the doctrine of dependent origination as Buddha himself. And even if Buddha questioned him on this matter in 7 days, Shariputra will have no trouble in his answer. He is revered as the most intelligent and intellectual Arhats during the Buddha's time. Similarly, in another Nikayas, it's written that Arhat Mongalana, Arhat Mahakassapa, and many other Arhats possess the capabilities equal to the Buddha in terms of preaching, interpreting the Dharma, entering into the different stages of meditation, or performing magical powers. The Milindana Panha text speaks of arhats outshining among all the bhikkhus, being glory and referred as a jewel of emancipation. Therefore, we cannot undermine the content of arhat, for they have achieved the highest stages of perfection of spirituality. A lay person to become arhat in Theravada is not completely rejected, but it's not completely encouraged also. Whereas many people are connected with being bodhisattva in Mahayana who have been engaged selflessly working for others. The bodhisattvas are not merely need to focus on Buddha, but rather focus on their attainment of Buddhahood. Since bodhisattvas are devoted to the roots of goodness, and even if bodhisattvas remain in solitude or in mountains, physically they cannot help the sentient beings, but their mind never abandons the sentient beings. So Acharya Shantideva in his text Bodhicharvatara defined the bodhisattva's practice of all perfection as a purely mental act. Bodhisattvas, out of altruism, voluntarily come back to samsara and keep hold on their final entry into nirvana. So bodhisattvas, they remain in the world, but they are not of the world. Whereas an arhats remain in this world, but they cannot be defiled by the worldly elements. The arhats has to constantly keep up with the intellectual activity and also do believe in compassion and helping sentient beings, but they do not promote the bodhisattva path. Whereas the bodhisattvas engage constantly in bodhicitta activities and promote the bodhisattva's path. What we find unique in bodhisattva's path is bodhicitta and more elaboration on the doctrine of emptiness. So we have the Bodhisattva Manjushri and Bodhisattva Avalokeshvara being embodiment of Buddha compassion and wisdom. Firstly, wisdom is considered more important than compassion for a Bodhisattva's practitioner. Later on, compassion has been more emphasized than the wisdom. In the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, the power and virtues of several bodhisattvas are being described who decided not to become Buddha to serve the sentient beings. Bodhisattva like Arya Sita, Maitreya Buddha, Samanta Bhadra, Kisti Garbha, Vajrapani, Akasha Garbha, and few important bodhisattvas have become more famous than other bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas have become more recipient by the people because the concept of emptiness and compassion is being more emphasized to achieve, and also they have been more liberal and give the freedom of interpretation of the Buddha's teachings. The scripture on Mahayana principle began to appear in the sutras like Prajaparimitra Sutra, the Vimalakirti Sutra, the Flower Garland Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, and the Amitav Sutra. Lastly, we need to focus more on we do not need to focus on which one is higher or lower, but treat both as a therapy and a means to achieve spiritual perfection and a means to free the self or the other from the cycle of rebirth. It is fairly well to suspend our judgment of being superior or inferior, rather need to focus on the crisis of ethics and moralities in today's time. So encouraging people's potential and motivate them for liberation should be the task of both arhats as well as bodhisattvas. Therefore, in Arya Nagarjuna Prajaparimitra Sutra, he says that a bodhisattva is a person who with his own karma at the time of birth, born as a human being, but with effort and determined mind, that person can eliminate bad karma and all suffering and attain liberation by adopting practical ways taught by the Buddha, which is enlightenment by one's own virtues and highest effort for the welfare of all sentient beings. So this is a very bright line which can encourage every sentient being to walk on the path of Buddhahood. If not Buddhahood, then an individual can strive for spiritual perfection and get rid of passion, malice, sickness, death, birth, and delusion. So we should give a lots of effort intellectually and practice bodhicitta with sincere effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Jordan.
Hello. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all the views. To you, Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Good afternoon, distinguished venerable scholars, professors, ladies and gentlemen, and brothers and sisters. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer, Tibet House, the Culture Center of His Holiness Dalai Lama, to giving me such a precious opportunity to share my little learning and my thoughts on this topic. So it's my first paper, so I'm a little nervous too. So forgive me for my mistakes. So my topic of the paper is on the Theravada and Mahayana philosophy of ultimate reality and its practice. So first let me see what is reality. So I check on the Google and search what is reality. So Google gave me this answer. Reality is the state of things or phenomena as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic, imaginary or notion of idea. We look around and see innumerable things and phenomena as we interact and we give name and give identity and names to their different objects. But most of the things are composites in their nature, made up of smaller or more fundamental things, which these fundamental things constitutes the reality. So analyzing and examining the objects or the things take us down to the back road of reality, which is not other than the fundamental particles, forces or energy, which are the fundamental blocks of things. Now, from the Buddhist point of perspectives, we see what constitutes the reality. So according to Buddhism, reality can be seen in the form of 2 points of views. One is conventional reality and the other is ultimate reality. So conventional reality, which is known as Samvriti Satya in Sanskrit or Samyuti Satya in Pali, and the other ultimate reality is known as Parmat Satya in Sanskrit and Paramatha Satya in Pali. And the conventional reality in Sanskrit, the term used in Sanskrit and the term used in Pali, there is a little difference in their meaning, which I came in later in my paper. So first, my paper is mostly focused on the Mahayana's view of ultimate reality and its practice. So, but my title is for the both, so I will discuss a little about Theravada first. So basically the Theravada Buddhism is based on the Buddhist Pali canonical of Buddhist literature, which is the Tripitaka or the three baskets. So in the three baskets, there is not a particular like sutras or discourses in which Buddha explicitly taught about the true truth or the true realities, which is the conventional and ultimate. But there are some instances where Buddhas gave teachings depending upon the mental dispositions or mental capacity of different students and disciples. So there is a inconsistency in the teachings of the Buddhas. So Theravada came up with the point that the teachings should be taken in two ways. Like in Anguttara Nikaya, the distinction is drawn out between Ni-arth and Ne-arth. The former refer to those teachings of Buddhas which have their meaning drawn out, that is to be taken as they stand, as explicit and definite teachings. These are called definite teachings of Buddhas, which are explicit. And the latter refer to those statements which requires their meaning to be drawn out, which is Ne-arth, that is not to be taken literally. So there the teachings should be more or like taken as implicit teachings, which can be like interpretive teachings. So skip some part. Well, I will now talk about the ultimate reality according to the Mahayana Buddhism. So according to Mahayana Buddhism, we have like 4 schools of Buddhism. So we have, first we have from Vaibhashik, and then we have Swautantik, and then we have Chitta Mantra, and last we have Madhyamik. So these schools have their view of the conventional reality and the ultimate reality, but there is a difference in their understandings, in the level of their subtleties. According to Vaibhashik school of Mahayana, the ultimate truth consists of irreducible spatial units, also known as partless particles, and irreducible temporal units, whereas the conventional reality consists of reducible spatial units or temporal units. So here we can clearly see that something which is reduced, either physically destroying it or mentally dividing it, so these are conventional realities according to Vaibhashik, and which are not mentally or physically destroyed. They are the Paramat Satya or the ultimate truth. So and from the point of view of the Swautantik, they classifies according to the object of perception, like some objects are directly accessible and some are through inference. So depending upon these two valid sources of knowledge, the Swautantik scholars have defined the ultimate reality and the conventional reality as different. I have little time rest, so I wanted to more talk about the practice of the scope of the true truth. Buddha himself proclaimed 2 kinds of truth, as conventional truth and ultimate truth, and third does not exist. Therefore, Buddha gave all the teachings either on the conventional truth or on the ultimate truth. Acharya Nagarjuna in his text Mulya Madhya Karika, chapter number 24, verse 19, quote, "The Buddha's teachings of the Dharma is based on the true truth, a truth of worldly convention and a truth of the ultimate truth," unquote. The conventional reality and the ultimate reality are also known as the two bases. As in the morning, Geshe Jamchuk Chodden La mentioned about it, the two bases, two path, and the true result. So in the two bases is the true truth, the conventional truth and the ultimate truth. The true path is the path of accumulation of merits and the path of accumulation of wisdom. So in Mahayana, everyone achieves to aim the highest goal, that is to achieve complete enlightenment or liberation from this samsara. So to achieve this liberation from samsara, one must has to accumulate merits and wisdom. So to accumulate this merit and wisdom, one has to follow the two paths. So merit is like the driving force or energy for one to achieve enlightenment for this benefit of all sentient beings and for oneself. On the other hand, wisdom is accumulated by meditating and experiencing the ultimate nature of or essence of the phenomena, which is not other than the emptiness. One analogy Geshe-la Dorje Damdula gave to us about this I found very interesting, about the samsara of being a poisonous tree, and samsara and all the leaves of these poisonous trees as disturbing emotions, afflictions, and to get rid of this poisonous tree we need two things. One is a sharp axe which actually cuts the trees, which is like the wisdom, which cuts and uproots the afflictions, and the secondary thing we need is the physical strength to lift and swing the axe to cut the poisonous trees, which is like the merit, which gives us energy or driving force for us to eliminate all these sufferings and to get out of this samsara. Thank you, everyone.
speaker, Ms. Rajora.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, my presentation topic is differences between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism share the some core beliefs and devotion to the life and teaching of Buddha, but they do have some differences and similarities. Some of the similarity between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism are: first, both accept Shakyamuni Buddha as the teacher. Second, the Four Noble Truths are exactly the same in the school. Third, the Eightfold Path is exactly the same in the both school. Fourth point is doctrine of dependent origin is the same in the both school. Fifth, both rejected the idea of supreme being who created and governed this world. And lastly, dukkha, anatta, sila, samadhi and panna are the same in the both Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism. Now, some of the differences between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism are: Bodhisattva idol is present in Mahayana Buddhism, whereas Arhat idol is present in Theravada Buddhism. Theravada is a more ethical and historical and conservative also, whereas Mahayana is a less conservative and more liberal. Mahayana Buddhism suggests Bodhisattva to delay their realization to stay in samsara and help the struggling human, whereas Theravada suggests Bodhisattva seek enlightenment first and before can help others. Mahayana Buddhism stress more on mantra, chanting and learning of Buddhist philosophy, whereas Theravada mainly focus on samadhi and vipassana. Theravada Buddhism is more spread in the Southeast Asian nations like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma and Cambodia, whereas Mahayana Buddhism is present in North and South Asian nations like Tibet, Taiwan, Japan, Korea and Mongolia. Theravada Buddhism believes that they practice the original form of Buddhism as it was handed down the teaching of Buddha. The doctrine of Buddhism corresponds with the recorded teaching of Buddha and is based on the Four Noble Truths through the practice of the Eightfold Noble Path. The strict idea of Theravada were practically not accepted by majority of the people. The Theravada texts are written in a language called Pali, which literally means text, and it based on Middle Indo-Aryan dialect, probably spoken in central India during Buddha's lifetime. Pali was originally a spoken language with no alphabet. Theravada literature consists of Buddha's teaching arranged and compiled in the three divisions. First, Vyana Pitaka, that is basket of discipline, Sutta Pitaka, that is basket of discourse, and the Abhidharma Pitaka, that is based on higher doctrine. Now, talking about the Mahayana Buddhism, Mahayana accommodate a greater number of people and calling their path the greater vehicle. They believe they are also recovering the original teaching of Buddha. In the quest, Mahayana Buddhism developed theory of progression and attaining enlightenment. The Bodhisattva is a major contribution to the Mahayana Buddhism, who have both compassion and wisdom of emptiness. Mahayana Buddhism do not confine their belief to one Buddha, but strive to see the nature of Buddhahood in all human beings. Mahayana Buddhism disappeared from India during the 11th century. In Southeast Asia, Theravada Buddhism replaced Mahayana Buddhism. However, Mahayana Buddhism is the most popular branch of Buddhism in the world. Thank you.
Excellent. I think the speakers did their own job on timekeeping. Wonderful. So I think Geshe-la said we have some time till lunch at 1:15, so we can maybe have a bit of a discussion and some questions. Okay. Oh, actually, maybe the lunch is almost ready, so maybe we should just... Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you. Wonderful.